Happy 4th of July, America and all others. Lon Kiefer, retired comic, caregiver comic. I don't know what I'm calling myself these days. It's all the same. So this is Fenwick Island, Delaware. I moved to Seaford, Delaware in 1994, about a half an hour from this beach. And now, 30 years later, 1 year, 29, give me that 30th. Vicky would correct me. But 30 years later, I now live an hour away from this beach, and I haven't moved. That's how many people have moved down here between my town, Seaford, and this beach. It's unbelievable. And on a 4th of July weekend, you can really see it. I'm going to take a walk in a minute and talk to you about what I'm reading today and the significance of it, and I'll show you a little bit of about the beach as I go. We all have our own personalities, and beaches have their own personalities. When I go to Jacksonville and visit the grandkids, their beaches take on, you know, a lot of bikes and things like that because it's a different sand and hardly see any vehicles. Whereas here, it's trucks all over the place because it's a drive-on beach, and we're in this one little spot that doesn't have trucks, I think out of courtesy for the people that walk over like we did. But this is my reading today on the beach, Feeling Good by Dr. David Burns. I talk about it a lot in my videos, and with that entry, we're gonna go ahead and get going on our on our walk. Help me. I'm sat down and I can't get up. Oh man, so here we are. Just gonna walk on the beach, and I hope the wind isn't too much to distract from this. But this weekend, so I grew up as a kid, I don't have many memories. I grew up with my father having a mental illness. He was schizophrenic, manic depressive, and we weren't allowed to talk about it. Didn't even know that my father had a mental illness until I was old enough to figure it out on my own. But it clearly influenced me. Maybe even is why I became a nurse, because I started learning how important it was to take care of other people, my sisters at a young age. I was the man of the house at like 7 or 8 years old. But this isn't about my terrible childhood, because that's just it. I don't think of it as a terrible childhood. I think of it as a great childhood. But I lived in the suburbs of Philadelphia, West Chester, Pennsylvania, for, I don't know, about 10 years. My earliest memory is being, I don't know, about 8 years old and going to, of all things, a Tom Jones concert with our next door neighbor. So if you ever wonder about me, that's why, because, I got to get under this fishing line. So you can fish on the beach. As a matter of fact, if you drive on the beach, let me swing this around for you. If you drive onto the beach here, you have to be fishing and actively fishing, say the permits. But actually, very few people actually do. They just make it look like they're fishing so they can drive onto the beach. So anyway, if you ever wondered why I'm a little odd, just think about that. My earliest childhood memories was 1419 Stallion Lane, West Chester, Pennsylvania, outside of Philly. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. I remember nothing before that. And one of the first memories is that my neighbor took me to a Tom Jones concert, and he's still at it. He's like 78 or something. But the point is, Philadelphia, going to the Phillies games and things like that as a kid are some of my earliest memories. And then we moved to Baltimore in 1976, which would have put me at 14 or so. This past weekend in Baltimore, remember it's 4th of July right now, in Baltimore, and then they had something called Brooklyn Days, like a neighborhood block party. And then the next day, or 48 hours removed, in Philadelphia, there were mass shootings. Now, this channel is not about politics, but it is about mental health, and that's pretty much a mental health thing, or not. We don't know what really happened, but anyway, the point of this is I'm now a man of a certain age, and whatever I've learned along the way and whatever I can share, I want to use this channel to share it. I used to go and get on stages at conferences, and I'd be tired and, stressed and raising kids and having a career and flying around and talking about stuff like this in a humorous way. And people would see the humor, but not the seriousness of it. So my goal is what I did. I got even more funny and more serious all at the same time. Here, I just want to be direct and candid. Mental health is real. And that book, Feeling Good, is like my Bible. The story behind that is my mother having, survived and been married to my father and then divorced and then a single mother and all of that. At a point in my life when I was a single dad, she was worried about me. And she she wrote a note to my doctor, Dr. Curtis Smith. And I said, Mom, there's two types of depression. There's chronic depression and episodic depression. Chronic depression is where you're depressed and you don't know why, how it started, and it just lingers. Episodic depression is after you've lost a loved one or lost a job or whatever, just something that put you in that funk, and you'll come out of it eventually, usually on your own. Exercise, medication, whatever. But there was a time where my mother was worried about me. And I said, Mom, I'm just going through something. I'll be fine, but I promise I'll talk to Dr. Smith. The joke, by the way, is caregivers, what they have often is chronic episodic depression, where they just go into and out of these blue periods, because when somebody's struggling, the caregiver rushes to help them, and then they often can struggle too. So anyway, I promised my mom I would see Dr. Smith. And when I went to see him, he said, Lon, I don't think you need antidepressants. I think you need this book. And he gave me Feeling Good by Dr. David Burns. And in that book, this book is like 30 or 40 years old, by the way. And it talks about the new mood therapy, where you can just have a proper perspective about things. And in that book, it talks about cognitive distortions. There's many of them: personalization, mental filtering, jumping to conclusions. And I'm going to do a video on each of them. But just to give you a real quick example, one of them is called should statements. And a lot of us will motivate ourselves by saying, I should do this, I should do that. That's a shouldy attitude. Hope you caught the play on words there. But the mind game that you can play on yourself when it comes to a should mentality, see, what you're doing there is you're punishing yourself if you don't do something. The only way you'll give yourself a break is if you actually do the thing that you should do. And then you punish yourself again, because when you did it, you say, well, I should have done it earlier. Or, you discount what you actually did. Whew. So one of the ways that you combat that is by sassing the thought. You put a shouldn't against a should statement, or a should against a shouldn't statement. Like, for example, if you say, I should go for a jog today, you can say, no, I shouldn't, because, I might get hit by a car or whatever. I mean, people get killed every day jogging on the roads because they think they should do it. And the reality is jogging today means nothing unless you also jog tomorrow. So take a walk today, instead of jogging. Say, I shouldn't jog today because of this. And then you can do either should or shouldn't, and there's no guilt associated with either decision. So anyway, that's something that I learned from Dr. Burns and Feeling Good. And I hope, whether it's this channel or some other source, if you're struggling, you'll reach out to somebody and get some help. So let's show you a big shot of this beach again. So here we are. This is a drive-on beach. That is beginning to be, what would that be? That's beginning to be, I guess, Bethany-ish area. And then if we shoot back here, you see trucks and people. And that's it for now. Happy 4th of July. Let humor work. Smile, laugh, cry. Kind of very similar emotions, but just feel them 100% when you do them. Let humor work.